what people need to realize is that the group of legislators that are involved in this, at this point now, there are 8, both senators and representatives, that either represent the River Valley or alumni at Arkansas Tech. And none of the decisions that are made by myself alone. Whenever a decision is made, it goes through all 8, and actually this decision was not my decision. It was an idea that came up from one of the others, and everybody agreed that this would be the best avenue to take, because we had 3 options, and I'll tell you the 3 options were, and they were already written up and they've already been discussed with Dr. Bowen and different board members over the last few months. The first option was to zero out Tech's budget and have them to draw next year's operating funds out of the $58 million in carryover that they had from last year. The second option was to, which this one has not been discussed with her, but the second, it is drafted though, was to cut her budget or cut her salary $100,000. And the third option was to go to the root cause of what has been currently being a reoccurring theme, and that was the diversity inclusive department and how they've been conducting themselves. So in order to understand all that, you have to understand this has been going on now for about 2.5 years. We have intentionally worked to keep this under the radar so as not to hurt the image of Arkansas Tech University. And until one of the board members decided to go out and say that we were hostile towards Tech, specifically me, the decision was made that now we needed to start going public, so people started hearing about it actually before this latest incident. 2.5 years ago, there were 6 of us that met with Dr. Bowen and staff members, and we were there in a positive light, and something they said had never happened before, and that was 6 legislators coming into a room, sitting down and saying, what do we need to do to make you successful? Within that conversation, we explained what it was going to take to be successful, to understand the legislature. At the time, the number of Democrats and Republicans was very close, but even with that, about 80 out of 100, at least on the House end, were conservative. And I literally made that statement. You have to understand, we have 80 conservatives in the House of Representatives, and I said I did not say Democrat, Republican, I said conservatives. Then you move on to the River Valley. The River Valley itself is a conservative to moderate area of the state. Some will argue it is the most conservative area of the state. That people there, unless you've lived there, you wouldn't understand it. I mean, people don't look at the color of a person's skin. I mean, it's literally everybody gets along, and whatever you do, it's your business, and we don't force anything on anyone. At least that's how I was raised there. And so we laid out that there was a specific left and right limits we were going to have to negotiate and be successful. And at the end of the day, once that was laid out, let's move out, let's move forward, and let's get things done. Well, 30 days later, we're dealing with transgender-friendly bathrooms at a university that had at the time 6 transgender students out of 12,000. Well, phones started ringing. We had to engage. Articles were written about it. And now they're saying that when we engaged the board members, the last meeting we had, they're like, well, what's wrong with family-friendly restrooms? Nothing. There's nothing wrong with a family-friendly restroom until you decide you want to call it a transgender-friendly restroom in the River Valley. So we got that taken care of. Then time went on, and we get about October time frame. This is October of last year, of 16. And the phone rings, and a young woman had made a bad judgment call. She decided to go to a sorority Halloween party dressed as a rapper, and she painted her face black, and not good judgment at all. I mean, she's a kid. She's 19, 20 years old. And so rather than pull that student aside and let her know that this is not a good idea, you really need to think before you act, it turned into a national incident that made the New York Times, and that girl, talking to different professors out there that know the situation, said she was literally drug over the coals and made to be the villain when all she did was go to a Halloween party and use bad judgment. So that was the second and third incident, and there's been others. As time went on, we had an incident of a parent called and now we're at 8. Then we had 6, we're now at 8 folks that are engaged in this. Had a parent call one of the folks, and by the way, I just wound up being, for some reason, the lightning rod for the group. That's why you see my name on everything, because I'm the one that winds up taking care of it when the group makes a decision. Had a young lady's parent called, was concerned, a freshman, went down to check her housing assignment. She had looked at who her roommate was going to be, made a comment to housing that I'm not comfortable rooming with a transgender. They told her it wasn't her decision and that she needed to seek out sensitivity training. We called tech, we engaged. The response was that it happened. It should not have happened, but it happened and it was fixed. But now what we're starting to see is a pattern that is not a reflection of a university, that is an extension of a community where students are guests in that community. We're starting to see a lifestyle that is being forced on the institution's population. If that's the way you want to be, if that's the lifestyle you want to live, then okay, so be it. But do not take students who are coming to Arkansas Tech University seeking out an education and forcing them to change the way they think based on your ideology. So time goes on. We started having the riots around. Police officers were being ambushed. There was a heightened sense of aggressiveness in some of the communities around the country, specifically involving Black Lives Matter. So there was a meeting set up between members of the Arkansas State Police, the Russellville Police Department, and the Polk County Sheriff's Office. It was set up by the Office of Diversity and Inclusiveness, and the students went down, they had the meeting, and so after it all took place, this is the one time that I did engage. I wanted to see what was the demeanor of those students and the professor that heads up that department, or the department head. And they all told me. They came in there with an agenda, with a chip on their shoulder. The good thing that came out of it was that law enforcement, because we have some of the most professional law enforcement officers in the River Valley by far in the state of Arkansas. And they all said that at the end of the meeting, it came off in a positive note. Those kids had a better understanding of what was really going on, of what law enforcement faces, how you should react when you're engaged by a law enforcement officer. So they took something that could have gone to a negative light that started off with a demeanor of negativity and turned it into a positive. And I think what folks need to understand is, and I may have said this already, we have engaged the board, members of the board, on at least 3 different occasions since September. We have engaged the president at least 6 times in the last 2.5 years. And so a solid 2 years we've been dealing with phone calls at one time or another, dealing with the Department of Diversity and Inclusiveness. So you fast forward as of late, there was a drag queen show at Arkansas Tech University. It's been going on for 10 years. I never even knew it. I've lived in the River Valley, in specifically Russellville, for over 40 years. And it wasn't until the Diversity Inclusive Department decided it was a good idea to promote that outside of the Tech campus that the community, once again, who is conservative to moderate for the most part, took that, and our phone started ringing. We had to engage. Then now we are at, once again, we've talked to the board. We've let them know, make our phone stop ringing. That's literally been our theme. The president needs to come back to the center, and our phones need to stop ringing. When the phones stop ringing, we will stop engaging Arkansas Tech University, because we really don't have time for it. We're here to do the people's business, and when the people tell us that that's where we need to be, when we're over here working on projects that we've been working on them for 2 years, and we're having to divert attention to Arkansas Tech University, it is frustrating. And apparently it fell on deaf ears because somebody thought, as of late, as you guys know, that we would promote sex on the lawn. It was pushed outside of the confines of the campus itself, and this was the second or third year that this had taken place. I had no idea. Once again, they say, well, it's a sex education event. It was an event that was not funded by school dollars, but yet once again there's a stamp from the Department of Diversity and Inclusiveness. Once the complaints came in on it, we had to engage. Those excuses came out, and then it was about 1 to 2 days later that the pictures started showing up via text. And these actually came to me this time, and they were different. It was a table with items on it that were not related to sex education, except in, I would say, maybe the behind closed doors type of venue. Trying to put this mildly, trying to figure out how to say this. We're talking battery operated devices. They were sex toys. I'll just say it. That's what they were. And now folks at the university are trying to defend that. It's freedom of speech. Well, what if a parent on an institution, on the grounds of an institution funded by taxpayer dollars in a state that is predominantly conservative, what if a parent had their senior walking across the campus trying to figure out whether or not that's where they wanted to go to school, and that's what they're presented with that day? It's unprofessional. It's bad judgment, and that judgment was once again rendered by the department head at the Department of Diversity and Inclusiveness. So that's when the decision was made that we've gone as far as we can go, and we're going to have to, now it's time to act. My question and my answer to that would be, does the university have what they call a safe space for freedom of speech? That is what that area is for. And if they do, is the message that university wants to send to the community that this is what we condone? Instead of helping students to understand, you have to know what we call in the military, the operational environment. What is going on around you? Are you going to alienate the vast majority of the community that has welcomed you into their community as a guest? Those students are guests. Or do we just want to say, everything's game and we're not going to, because I keep hearing from different entities at Tech or on their diversity inclusive website is teaching kids how to be successful later on in life. Making those kids think that this is acceptable behavior, and that regardless of whether or not it is a First Amendment right, because that could be questionable. I mean, it's university grounds; they could have rules. How is that going to be received when you go out to the kids that are in the picture, the pictures that were on Twitter? How is that going to be received when the employer that you're seeking out after you graduate school starts doing a search and they find you posing with these types of devices when you're in college? Because it happens all the time. Well, being an alumni, and not only are they saying to lose its accreditation, they're saying that folks like myself who went to school there and received a bachelor's degree would lose those credentials. That's ludicrous. The university's been around. It started out as an agricultural university. It's been around for many, many, many years. I am not aware that they will lose their accreditation. I can tell you that the nursing department just went through accreditation and just was reaccredited. Could it be a strike based on the former administration in Washington and those who were in charge of the Department of Education? Possibly. We're looking into that right now with our legal. But at the same token, nobody knows that for sure. The University of Tennessee has done this. They did this in 2016. they took the whole I think it was $450,000 that was funding that diversity inclusion department and turned it into scholarships for minority students. That's exactly the same thing we're planning on doing here. We're going to take, I think it's $155,000, and we're going to turn that into, we have a draft amendment that is being drafted because we didn't know what we were going to do, how we were going to earmark that money, but to minority students for engineering, ag, nursing, or IT. The four things that this state either is a big major part of this state or what we're trying to attract to this state. So if offering $155,000 in scholarships is not a recruiting tool for minority students to come and receive technical training in those high-tech skills or agriculture, which is our biggest industry, then we need to address that at the national level. Well, it's like I just said and explained, this has been going on for 2.5 years, and we have asked, because at the end of the day, all of the representatives and senators that are involved in this, the majority of them represent the people of the River Valley. They're the ones driving this train. We have not engaged Arkansas Tech University unless we were first received a phone call, an email, a text from a constituent within one of the 8 persons districts. So if it were politically driven, then the constituents would not be involved in it. You know, the university itself may want to move further to the left, but they have to understand that the university is setting in the middle of the most conservative area of the state, and that by just pushing that agenda, and I'll just say in your face like they have been, what did they think was going to happen? Did they think it was just going to go over and there was going to be no pushback? Because the one thing, and I'll reiterate this, that we've been asking is make the phone stop ringing. That's all we're asking. When the phone stops ringing, we will stop engaging. And there's been a couple of times for a couple of weeks I thought, you know what, we've got this licked. This thing is done. I mean, just before this incident happened, their budget was on a hold for special language, and we got that worked out, and it was released, and it was about to go through. Now here we are again. Their budget's on hold, and it's on hold for special language. And so the previous special language was we had concerns about the strategic plan. We didn't have the full strategic plan, it turns out. We had an outside source that does outreach work looking over it. All that the special language said was if your strategic plan does not justify a $100 million budget, because with the 58 million they have, plus what they're asking for this year, they will have $100 million of taxpayer monies to work with out there. And if it does not justify $100 million, then you will have 1 year to come up with a strategic plan that does. But it turned out everything was great. Tech's strategic plan was spot on, and so we had removed that, and we're working to get that budget approved, and then this happened, and now here we are putting special language on it again. The first thing is, if this was politically driven, and then this would have been paraded over the last 2 years. The reason that we finally had to address this publicly is one of the board members decided it would be a good idea to come out and start telling people that I personally, myself and this group, but he pointed it at me, that I was hostile towards the university. If this was politically motivated, the next time that I gave a rundown to the Polk County Republican Committee, and I was there to let them know what was going on in the legislature, I said, folks, let me let you know what's been going on for the last 2 to 2.5 years. I took them down the exact same path that I just took you down. When I finished, I said, now how many of you had any idea that this was even going on? There were 2 or 3 that said they'd heard rumblings. The vast majority of them were like, we had no idea. The professors that I've talked to in the last couple of days that have called me, both liberal and conservative, have engaged me in conversation. They had an open mind. They listened to the story. When the story was over, you would hear a 10-second pause. We had no idea. We have done that good a job of trying to keep this under the radar, out of the media, so as not to affect Arkansas Tech University in a negative light. As for me being the lightning rod, somehow I wound up becoming the unofficial spokesperson for this group, and that's why you see me out there constantly. It's actually worked out pretty good, simply because we discuss, and then the message is, we have the message, and then the message goes through one entity, and sometimes Mary. Mary, when she put that on Facebook, that wasn't her decision. That decision was made by the group, that since the board and different entities at the university have taken this to the public light, yes, please, you're cleared to go ahead and put that on Facebook. As for the purse strings, that's what we're there for. The people have elected us to oversee the fiscal dealings, not of just the universities, but of the state government and anything dealing with their taxpayer dollars. So the statement, although has been misconstrued, is a true statement. We are sent here to be the gatekeepers for the taxpayers' dollars. And when those taxpayers, like this one here, just happens that it's in the most conservative area of the state and this is not going over well, and they want to know, why are we hearing about sex on the lawn? Why are we hearing about these type of devices that are being displayed at these types of events at an institution of higher education? They just expect more out of their university, because that university has been an extension of that community for a very long time. People like myself, Senator Standridge, we grew up there, and we understand the community. And you may not agree with past presidents, but we've always had consistent growth. But before the Department of Diversity Inclusive came on board, we had the highest graduation rate of African American students in the state of Arkansas of any state-funded institution of higher education. So I'm still sitting back wondering why we need to be spending $155,000 for something that wasn't broken. So in regards to that, that's pretty much the statement. I mean, the institution has always done well. I've talked to professors regarding that brought this to my attention, that we have African American students from out of state who came for the environment that Tech was and are uncomfortable with the environment that Tech is currently displaying and moving towards. So are we not now, we're trying to make a few students comfortable, and we're making a whole lot of our students uncomfortable. We've been working hard to keep this out of the media because of a few bad choices by a board member or board members. We have been forced to go down this path, and I will say that I had a meeting with the governor about a week ago, and at the end of the meeting, after I took him down the path, he was like, "What are you all looking? We're just asking that you come back to the center and make the phone stop ringing." That has been the message the entire time. Nothing here is politically motivated. We're just trying to do our job, and it's amazing when somebody does the bidding of the constituents that all of a sudden it always has to be politically motivated. We have the numbers. I believe it will. If it doesn't, we haven't, as a legislator, lost anything, because again, it's not personal. This is what the people expect us to do. We have overwhelmingly, the constituents within the River Valley have been positive. This is not what they want. This is not the direction they want that university to go. And had we been able to resolve this roughly 2.5 years ago, when we laid out a plan to help propel this university forward, then we wouldn't be sitting here talking right now.